Welcome to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know. The draft has finally concluded, ladies and gentlemen. If my tone is a little bit softer and a little bit quieter, it's because in this current situation that I'm in currently right now, had to be a little bit quieter. So if it comes off that way, it's not because I'm less excited, it's just because I have to be, unfortunately. But the draft has concluded. I could not have predicted half the stuff that happened in this draft. The Christian Wilkins pick. It kind of sucks because basically all the rumors were true. Let's just put it that way. We pretty much got this draft the day before it happened, or at least like a few days before it happened. I think all the rumors and leaks for all the teams were pretty much spot on, which is kind of crazy. It never really happens that way. Sometimes, other than the Farrell pick, that wasn't really predictable. The Daniel Jones pick was pretty predictable, just because of everybody saying they're going to pick him, and yeah, they picked him. But the Dwayne Haskins fall, that was predictable. I think, a week before the draft, everybody was like, yeah, he's going to fall pretty far. So this was a crazy draft, though. Especially for the Dolphins. I feel like we had the craziest draft out of anybody, just because not only did we make good picks, because we didn't have that many picks, but we made solid choices for the situations that we were in, and we also loaded up on. We have 12 picks in the 2020 draft, and I thought Chris Greer did a really good job of not only gaining things, but losing to gain things. And we're going to talk about all of that stuff. I just wanted to give you like a brief synopsis and just overview of. This draft was just insane, and I really do feel like I thought he did a good job with what he had and with the positions that he was put in. And we're going to get into more detail right now, because we're going to go pick by pick. But before we do that, I want to run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know. Just standard stuff that you might not have heard, like you might not know the details, but the Cardinals have basically paid Josh Rosen all of his contract. So if you guys don't know this, I wanted to run you through the numbers really quickly. And this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Rosen is going to a roster that... Okay, hang on a second. This is... Let's see, I gotta find the numbers here. Rosen is owed less than $7 million through 2021. So that is going to be spread out. I think he's getting paid... let's see here. Yeah, like $3 million a year, which is less than backup money. So if Josh Rosen does turn out to be, because the Cardinals paid the bulk of the contract already, if the Cardinals, and Chris Greer made a very important point to bring that up, what was I saying? Oh, if Josh Rosen ends up being this great quarterback, then we have him for nothing, and we can really build a really, really good team around him. Even though we're building through the draft, I really don't think it matters. But especially if we keep going on with this philosophy and how we've stockpiled picks so far, I don't really think that matters as much. But it does allow you to extend players that do develop into something great. So I think obviously that's huge value there. Not only did we get a first round talent for a second round pick, but his bulk of his contract has been paid. We're not going to be paying him less than backup quarterback money, which is just a positive for this franchise. So in case you didn't know that, I wanted to bring that up. You probably already did. And in case you didn't know this either, when the Dolphins traded down to the 66, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. When the Dolphins traded with the Saints to move back to the 62nd pick in the second round, the Saints gave up their 2020 second round pick. So if you didn't know that, I wanted to tell you that before we go into the deep dive into all of the prospects that we did acquire. I wanted to get all that hard, stuff that you guys really need to know. This was a beautiful move by Chris Greer. Obviously, if you weren't following the news cycle and the fluids or the situation that was the Josh Rosen trade, and we have one more news thing I want to bring up. This also comes from Pro Football Rumors, but let me get this point out. If you didn't follow it, the reason this deal didn't get done sooner, I think Drew Lock played into that a little bit, but because he fell to the second round, but also it was because we didn't feel comfortable giving up such a high second round pick. I think when Greg Little and Cody Ford got selected, I felt like as soon as that happened, I'm like, we're gonna get Josh Rosen, because I do think we were going to pick one of those guys. I really do believe that. If I think we were gonna let them. I don't think we were gonna be aggressive to get one of them, but those are two pretty good tackles, and I felt like if they did fall, then we would have picked one. But unfortunately, we got leapfrogged, and the whole Chase Winovich thing as well. I felt like if Chase was there, I think we would have picked him as well. I really do believe that. But it didn't happen. I mean, those were two solid, especially Cody Ford. I mean, he's a good player. So I felt like that was a factor. So the way Chris Grier handled that, not only to trade back, but to get such a high value pick from the Saints, a second round pick for just moving back of, like, what was it, 10? It was more than 10 spots. It was a few more than 10. It was beautiful. That was a very Bill Belichick type thing to do. So I like that a lot. I think we can all agree on that. I mean, that was a really, really solid move right there. This last news story I want to bring up, I think this also comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins were not the only football team who was interested at the second when the second round was going on. The Patriots, and they don't list the other teams, they just say there were other teams, but the one team that they do list was the Patriots. The Patriots were also in trade talks with the Arizona Cardinals, so it wasn't just a one-way shoot with us. There were also other teams bidding for him, and Chris Grier kind of said that in the press conference, that there were other teams, and Pro Football Rumors kind of goes a little bit into more detail on that. One of those teams was the New England Patriots. So I felt like that was, people needed to know that, because it's like, oh, well, they had no leverage, the Cardinals, and I felt like a lot of Dolphins fans are going to be upset because, a lot of people thought we could get him for a third-round pick because the Cardinals were in such a bad spot. That's not necessarily true. There were other teams that wanted Josh Rosen. So there was a bit of a bidding war going on for his services. So it wasn't like the Cardinals had leverage because of other teams were in on Josh Rosen. So I felt like that was important to bring up as well before we discuss the whole Josh Rosen thing. I felt like there's some things that need to be brought up for context. So let's get into the draft, though, because I'm excited. Obviously, the Cardinals, when they took Kyler Murray, I was kind of upset, especially if you guys don't know. I think this was an ESPN article, and this is relevant to the Christian Wilkins pick. Apparently, we had a deal done with, I think, the 49ers to move up if Kyler wasn't picked number one, so he would have been a Dolphin and I don't know what we would have given up for him, but obviously probably a lot, but he would have been a Dolphin if the Cardinals didn't pick him, which sucks, but whatever. I really like Kyler Murray, so it sucks for me. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I thought that was like, yeah, that sucks. But the whole Christian Wilkins thing is, I love this pick. I'm sure everybody has seen it. Some of these players, I don't think a lot of people have seen play necessarily, but Christian Wilkins he's a big time player. He played at Clemson. There was a lot of primetime games, a lot of ESPN games. Obviously, they were in the playoffs, so a lot of people should have seen Christian Wilkins play. He is arguably the best. I think he's the best D lineman on their front. In my opinion. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Dolphins fan. First of all, a lot of people had him at least in their top 7 as prospects. So the fact that we got him at 13 is great value there. Another player that fell, like Mika Fitzpatrick last year, that I told you guys that this was going to happen, that there was going to be talent that bled, and it did happen. I mean, it happened. The Jaguars got Josh Allen because of it. We got Christian Wilkins because of it. So I knew this was going to happen, and I felt like we got a really, really, really good player. If you haven't seen Christian Wilkins play, he's a very athletic defensive tackle. He also, a couple of times, has lined up as like that outside edge protector, kind of, and he was standing up. So kind of think of like Rob Ninkovich, Willie McGinnis, that kind of a New England Patriots outside linebacker, and I think we can use him. I think he's going to be used like that a lot. I really do, because when you watch him, the few times that he did it in college, when you watched him do it, I mean, he looked like those guys. He looked like a Willie McGinnis. Maybe not the athlete that Willie was, but he looked like that, just that perfect edge defender, and he is a great athlete. He's chased running backs. I mean, he's a really, really good athlete for his size. He's super quick. He's more of a, someone described his playing style. He's more of a slip guy, not necessarily a shed guy, which is completely true if you watch him. He uses his hands and quickness more to get off blocks than he does power. And for such a big dude, his football instincts is great. The way he shoots the gaps, his quickness, I mean, the Alabama game that he had in the national championship, he was getting double teamed every single play. He is the guy that everybody tried to take out of the game. I think he was the best defense. I mean, he was an All-American last year. He had 6 sacks. I think he was their best defensive lineman. Dexter Lawrence is I feel like he's going to be more of that nose tackle, power, run stuff guy. I don't think he doesn't have the ceiling that Christian has. He doesn't have the versatility that Christian has. I feel like Christian can affect a game more than even Cleveland Farrell because he's more of a one-dimensional guy as well. You know, you can move Christian Wilkins in if you want to stop the run. You can move Christian Wilkins outside if you want to get pressure. You can if we're struggling on the edge to defend the run, we can move him outside to be that edge guy. There's so many things that we can do with Christian Wilkins, especially since there's so many holes still left on the defensive side of the football, that we can use him as a edge pass rusher if we needed to, and he can do that at a high level, which is why I love this pick so much. So I think this is a perfect pick for the situation we're in. I think he's a cornerstone building block. I think he's that good. I mean, you know, he's up there. He's not better than Quentin Williams. I think he's better than Ed Oliver. I think he's definitely a more polished product than Ed Oliver is, and he still has a pretty high ceiling, and he's more versatile. So I think he was, I mean, you could argue, I definitely think he was definitely a top 5 defensive lineman in this draft. I think you could argue that he was second to Quentin Williams. I mean, Simmons from Mississippi State is pretty good, especially if he's healthy. So I feel like that's the only debate that I think I could entertain, that he could, you know, that Simmons could be better than Christian, but which I get, but I feel like he's right up there with him. So I would say he was the second best DT in this draft, and for all the other reasons I just mentioned, of why he is such a perfect pick, because he is so versatile. The same thing with Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah was able to fill so many holes, even though there was too many to fill, and you know, but he did his job wherever we put him. He did his job, whether that was in the slot, at free safety, at outside corner. He did his job at a high level. This is the same kind of player we're getting with Christian Wilkins. If we put him on the edge, he does this. He's going to do his job at a high level. He is going to stop the run. He is going to get pressure on the quarterback. If we put him inside, he's going to do the same thing. Excuse my dogs, they're stupid. So he's the same type of player in that way, that he can affect the game in so many different ways, and he can do it at such a high level. I mean, we don't know if he's going to do it in the NFL, but he did in college, and there's no reason to believe. And he's played a lot of football. You know, obviously, I think he played all 4 years at Clemson, or three or four. I can't remember, but he's played a lot of football. He has a lot of experience, and like I just said, the Minkah Fitzpatrick comparison, he can affect the game in so many different ways, and he can do so many things to help us win a football game, and he can wreck a game in so many different ways. And he, like I just said, he not only does he do all of those things, but he does it at a high level. It's not like, oh, he can do it, like he can do it at a serviceable level. No, he can do it at a high level, and I think that's the best thing you can say about Christian Wilkins, and I think he's definitely someone we can build around. So yeah, love this pick. So moving on to the second round. So I guess we have to talk about the Josh Rosen situation, because, I mean, obviously for obvious reasons, he was basically our second round pick. Now, I want to take a step back. Because I understand how other people feel about Josh Rosen is not the same way that I feel about Josh Rosen. I like Josh. I am on the side of Josh Rosen is going to be a good quarterback. The thing about Josh Rosen is the same thing that I said about Dwayne Haskins, and the reason I had Drew Lock over Dwayne Haskins. You have to surround. These guys are pocket passers, okay, and they can do it at a very, very high level. They need an offensive line to succeed. Peyton Manning needed it. Tom Brady, despite what other people say and think, he has a good offensive line. He has the best offensive line coach in the National Football League. Okay? If you have a pocket passer, you have to put talent around them up front, or they will not be as good as they can. It's just a fact. That is the reason Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, Baker Mayfield, some of the guys that can create when it's not there, are valued higher, which I completely agree with, by the way. That's my personal preference when it comes to quarterbacks. But that doesn't necessarily, that doesn't mean anything. That's nothing against Josh Rosen. because he still does what he does at a very, very high level. The thing is you have to put an offensive line behind, in front of him to succeed. And that's what puts him in such a peculiar situation right now when you talk about him coming to the Dolphins and how much of an impact, because you talk about a second-round pick. I think we all thought we could get someone who could come in and start, especially on this roster. So can Josh Rosen impact the field at a high level as the roster is right now? And it's very relevant to bring up, obviously, because I feel like anytime you get a quarterback, especially with the name that Josh has, he had a great college career. He's a great player, in my opinion. I think some of the plays that he made last year, and I'm getting off the crap in the tracks right now, but he is such a great pass. He's got a quick release, a beautiful release. He is deadly accurate downfield. Deadly. We finally have a quarterback that can put the ball wherever he wants, and he does it at a consistent. Like, he is a super accurate quarterback. Super. Some of the best throws that he had last year, I mean, not many quarterbacks can make that throw. Especially when we talk about some of the pieces that he was working with. He's a very smart decision maker. He understands the game at a high level. When you watched him, a lot of people made that he held on to the ball too long. He wasn't processing as fast as some people would like. I agree with that. He made rookie mistakes. He's a rookie. Okay, he made rookie mistakes when it comes to that. He's not used to reading NFL coverages. This is his first time doing it, and he had a very below-average supporting cast. So that, to me, it's less to do with him than more to do with him just being. That's just the process that rookie, quarterbacks go through. He doesn't have the athleticism to make something out of nothing. He doesn't have that. So he is that's the reason it looked like that. By the way, he had just as many touchdowns as Sam Darnold or Josh Allen. His stats are very, very similar to those guys. They're almost identical in terms of touchdown interception ratio. So it's not like he did that much worse than the other two, for God's sakes. Especially with, I don't have to say anything more about that. But my original point is that he has to have an offensive line for him to be a great quarterback, which he has the potential to be. I'm not saying he is going to be a great quarterback. I am saying for him to succeed, you have to have an offensive line around him. Currently, right now, the offensive line, obviously with Deiter, we got in the third round, which is a perfect pick for us. He's the best guard we've had on this roster in a very long time. And where the background that he comes from, the program that he comes from, the way he plays with the physical. I mean, we haven't had that kind of a presence on the interior offensive line in so long. So that's going to help the offensive line. I think Jesse Davis should start at right tackle, because when he did, I think 2 years ago, maybe he did a little bit last year, I can't remember. But I know for sure 2 years ago he did, and he did it at a very high level. He was above serviceable. He was a good right tackle. So I feel like he should be there, and he's always been a great pass blocker. His problem is he's not physical enough in the running game. So I feel like he should play right tackle, and he's done it before, and he's done it at a pretty good level. I feel like we should put Michael Deiter, our third-round pick, obviously at guard, and he's had the experience at tackle as well. I don't know if we'll test that out. Hopefully we don't. Center is still Daniel Kilgore. Evans we got from Jacksonville in free agency. He's okay. I mean, I feel like he's just like the guard. What's his name? I can't remember his name right now. We've had so many guards, but he's just like all of the rest of them. He's just a stopgap player. He's nothing special. So, he's someone hopefully maybe we can address with free agency, undrafted free agents. Or something like that. But the tackle, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. The tackle that we got from Ohio State, I think the 5th round, or the 6th round, excuse me, Isaiah Prince. I don't feel like he's going to do anything this year. So I feel like that, to me, will be, for right now, that is the starting offensive line. That's the best of the best. It's not as bad. I feel like Jesse is a good pass blocker. Laramie is one of the best in the National Football League. I don't have to say anything about that. Michael Deiter is a very good run blocker, and he's a good pass blocker as well. He's just a solid player. He's a solid guard. When we talk about the center, Daniel Kilgore, he just has to stay healthy, but he's a serviceable center. He's nothing terrible. He's not bad in any stretch of the imagination. He just struggles to stay healthy. And then obviously Evans is just a very stopgap, a replaceable player that he is. So the offensive line is better than it was before. I think it's, especially on the tackle position, especially if you put Jesse on the right tackle, I feel like it's a lot better than people might think. So that's going to be, it's not great. It's still not great. It still has me a little bit worried. But I think it's definitely better than it was before. So it's not as bad as I think, because people don't know who Jesse Davis is. So I get it. And they don't know that he's played tackle either. But I feel like it's better than people are saying it is. So I like the player. I think he's super underrated. The game that he had in Lambeau, some of the throws that he made in that game, some of the plays that he made in those 49ers games, the Raiders game that he ended up losing, and sometimes early on, and especially when he gets the Seahawks, he had good game. Like, he had his rookie moments in other games, but he is you could tell he's a good player. And I want to bring up this other point. If you guys know NFL history, that you would know that first round quarterbacks, especially ones that have went number 1 overall or high in the first round, that are pocket passers, struggle their first year in the league. It's a fact. Peyton Manning set the interception record for a rookie because he went to a terrible team that had the first. He's a pocket passer. He needed people around him, and then look what happened. 13-3 for almost his entire career. You look at Troy Aikman, same thing. He looked like a garbage can. He looked way worse than Josh Rosen. Same thing with Peyton Manning. When you throw Peyton threw for 29 interceptions, if you don't know. I don't have Troy's numbers in front of me, but it was not very good because that team sucked. So he did not have a good rookie season. Same thing with Arizona Cardinals. That team was terrible. Those are 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks that we're talking about. There's so many examples of that throughout NFL history when you talk about pocket passing quarterbacks. And he is the exact same way, dude. He's the exact same type of player. I'm not saying he's Peyton Manning. I'm saying that his style is a pocket passer. So when you look at NFL history and you look at those guys that have been drafted to a bad team and didn't succeed, but obviously they stuck with them and they became Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Not saying Josh Rosen is going to do that, but I'm saying that happens with these kinds of players. It happens with them. Eli Manning, the same thing. He wasn't very good his first, year starting. He was actually really bad. He made the team a lot worse. I don't know why my dogs are doing what they're doing. But yeah, so I lost my train of thought. Back to it. We're talking about first round pocket passing quarterbacks. That's the norm, dude. If we drafted Dwayne Haskins like a lot of us wanted, it would have been the same situation. He is a better Dwayne Haskins. In my opinion. I think he is. He played on a worse college team. He did, his ball placement, in my opinion, is better. He made more big-time NFL throws. That was the reason I put Drew Lock over Dwayne Haskins, is he made more NFL-like plays than Dwayne did in college. And same thing with, I'm talking about, like, wild throws, like throwing people open. Like, they did that more than he did in college. And he did that in the NFL as well, Josh Rosen. And I think he's going to improve. I don't think he's going to stay the same player as a rookie. That's what you hope for in rookies, is they continue to improve. And you saw things last year in Josh that were special. So I feel like he's going to get better. Is the offensive line good enough for him? It's better than what he had in Arizona. He did not have a franchise left tackle. He did not have a good right tackle. I think Jesse Davis he's not good against the run. He's terrible. But he's good against the pass. He's a good pass blocking player. And if we start him from the beginning of the year at right tackle, I feel like he should have a pretty decent good season at that position. So I feel like the offensive line is not as bad as a lot of people think. And we could still get some veterans that might get cut from other teams. Who knows? But I feel like right now the offense, especially if we have Jesse at right tackle, if we have Zach Stirrup or Isaiah Prince, that who's a project type of a player, maybe he's better. We've seen players like Andrew Norwell coming out of Ohio State, who he went undrafted, went to be a 2-time All-Pro player. So it's possible, but I just don't see it. It's possible. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. And I feel like Jesse Davis is he's a solid right tackle. So, it should be interesting how the Dolphins align the offensive line. I think that's the best way to handle it. But for Josh Rosen to have success, then that has to happen. Because if we go with like Zach Stirrup or, put Jesse Davis at guard, he's a good pass blocker, but he's not going to help him in the running game. So I feel like if that happens, then good luck having any kind of success behind that offensive line, because you're just not going to. So I think my expectations aren't. I feel like we got a very good quarterback. I'm so happy that I would have done the same thing, especially after Cody Ford and Greg Little went and Chase Winovich. Those were my top second round pick guys, and then everybody else with like Paris Campbell. I don't think Paris went in the second round, but we don't need receivers. So like we needed the meat and potatoes. I feel like the cream of the crop was gone. Now some of you might disagree with that. I mean, Michael Deiter, I felt like was a good consolation prize in the third round, but though that's the way I felt about as soon as those guys were off the board, at least in my mind, I was comfortable with making that trade, and I felt like we did the right thing. And I've always liked Josh Rosen. I wanted us to get him last year. I've always liked Josh Rosen as a prospect, as a player. I think this was a very good pick, and I think it will benefit the franchise for many years to come if we build this the right way. I really do believe that, and we can still make moves in free agency. Team offensive linemen, especially vets, are always let go. There's always big name guys that are let go, especially guards. But I do feel like if Jesse Davis plays right tackle, I feel like the tackle positions will be just fine. I don't think we have to worry about it as much. The interior is solid. It's not bad, especially with the addition of Michael Deiter. Daniel Kilgore is a okay to good center. He's nothing special. And Chris Evans is not a great guard at all. I'm not gonna say he's bad, but he's not good either. So that's the only position that we could address that I see like a big hole as of right now. But if that offensive line does come together, I feel like this Josh Rosen thing is good because he does have his receivers are good. When NFL Network was breaking down our stuff that we needed, they didn't even put Albert Wilson. They had Bryce Butler over Albert Wilson. Like, he wasn't even on the roster. I was like, you guys just don't know. You just clearly do not know what you're talking about. Like, they just don't know this team. Like, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant. Dude, these are, especially Rack, dude. These are people that can get open, that are, this is a super fast offense. He's got a good backfield. The only question is the offensive line, because it is, before this draft especially, it was atrocious. We had zero interior. Both guards positions were not good. At least one of those positions have been filled, who I believe, and we talked about Michael Deiter before in the fan Q&A with fan questions. I feel like he is a good player, and he should help this football team right away. So the offensive line is better than it was before, and I feel like we've been talking about Michael Deiter a lot, but we're about to talk about him even more. But the offensive line has to be right for Josh Rosen to have success because the skill positions are there. You talk about Mike Gesicki, who I think I have a lot of faith in, and especially what he gets with Chad O'Shea and what he was able to do with Gronk in that New England offense, and how he's coached way worse talented receivers into something serviceable. He has a talented group of guys that have super special physical gifts, especially within this offense, that can make this offense move. It's just the offensive line that we have to worry about right now. And I feel like if it gets fixed, Josh has a chance to have a very, very, very solid, good year and prove a lot of people wrong. It's just up front that we have to fix. And we have to, listen, I hope Jesse Davis starts at right tackle. Nothing is set in stone right now. I do not know what the coaching staff is going to do. But it has to be addressed for him to have success. I love the move. I love what we did, especially after those, and I brought up, especially after those guys left. One thing I want to bring up before we move from Josh Rosen. I saw a lot of tweets from like Barry Jackson and stuff of that who are beat writers for the team that like they passed on a great tackle, a great edge rusher. No, they didn't. There were not one of those guys that were left that I think were great. Not one of them that was left after Chase Winovich, after Greg Little, after Cody Ford. After that, it was like none of them. None of them had a chance to be great. There was nothing in them that I was like, yeah, those guys those are great players that we passed up. No, that did not happen. When I saw that, I was like, no, that did not. The best thing that we could have done in terms of a player in the ceiling that he would have is Josh Rosen. And he plays the quarterback position. He fills a need. We just have to shore up the offensive line. It just, that made me really upset when I saw that. I was like, that's not true. We did not pass up on great players to get Josh Rosen. I felt like that was ridiculous. Obviously Juwan Taylor, who fell to the second round as well, he got taken by and we weren't going, dude, you think we were going to go? No, we were not going to be able to get over anybody to get him. We would have had to give up so much to get a tackle who is more, in terms of, he's not the most polished player in the world. I wouldn't have done that. I would have just stayed put. So I feel like what Chris Greer did, he made the right decision, in my opinion. So let's move on to Michael Deiter in the third round. As soon as we picked him, I was like, the fans are going to be happy, because most fans that watch the show that that are in the fan Q&A that we do every single week on the podcast have, I don't know how many times people have brought up Michael Deiter in their mock drafts. A lot, at least 2 or 3 times. So I feel like the fans are going to be happy with this pick. We finally got a really good meat and potatoes player who's going to come in, and he's really good against the run. He's good against the pass. He's a Wisconsin product. We know what kind of talent they develop, especially up front. I loved this pick so much. I've never been so happy because a guard comes to mind. I think we are the only fan base to be as excited as like picking someone like a Paris Campbell. Like, this is someone that we desperately needed, and he's a good player, and we needed him so dang bad, and I'm so happy that we got him. It's just intriguing that, I know he's a versatile guy. I hope we don't try to play him at right tackle. I feel like he's at home at guard, and that's where we need to play him. But he's actually a really athletic guard as well. I think that's something that nobody's really talking about. This is a man that they threw a screen to, and he ran it in from like 20 yards out for a touchdown. Like, he has athleticism, so he's good at pulling as well, and I feel like that doesn't get brought up enough, and he moves people out of the way. So his athleticism, I think, is underrated, and he's just a good player that we can plug in, and he's a starter, and we got one in the third round that plays the guard position. I feel like that's a home run for us. So let's move on. I feel like we talked about Michael Deiter enough. I really like that pick. We got Jerome Baker in their third round as well from Ohio State. I think he was a third round pick. Who was our second rounder that year? It was Minka. I am drawing a super big blank on this one right now. Who was our second round pick last year? Maybe it was Jerome. Oh, it was Mike. It was Mike Gesicki. I don't know why I completely forgot about it. Yeah, so we did get Jerome Baker in the third. So back-to-back years, we got a pretty good Ohio State player in the third round. So let's move on to my dude Andrew from the outside linebacker from Wisconsin. I thought this was a interesting pick. He's a very slight guy. He doesn't look the part in terms of a New England style outside linebacker. Usually it's a stout dude, like a Kyle Van Noy. Like, think of it. He's a very skinny dude. Like, he reminds me of Cassius Marsh a lot, especially how New England used him. Like, he's not a big, like how, I'm not comparing him to Chris Long. I'm just saying that kind of a body type. He's even smaller than a Chris Long. Like, he reminds me of Cassius Marsh. This pick is interesting. Like, I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't think he has a chance to start just because we have no outside linebacker type of a guy, like, to play a 3-4 defense or to play a multiple front. We don't have anybody right now that can do that. He did that out of Wisconsin. He plays the outside linebacker position, if you don't know. I thought T.J. Warren. I keep saying it was his name. I can't remember. I can never. He's more of that kind of a guy, and he plays on the same team. He did not get drafted. I think he was projected to go from round 3 to 4 too, which kind of surprised me. Maybe his pass rushing. He had 3 picks last year, and he was good against the run. He had like 11 tackles for loss. I don't understand why he didn't get drafted, but especially in the 7th round. He looks more of the part that I am looking for in terms of that New England style guy who I'm not necessarily want to be a dominant pass rusher, but I want to be a very good first and second down player who can set the edge and defend the run. I don't necessarily I don't need him to be a Von Miller. I don't need him to be a Khalil Mack when he played outside linebacker. I don't need him to be that. I just need him to be a guy who does his job at a high level. And I just don't know if he can do that. Watching him play, but we needed someone like this. Does it solve the edge player problem as a edge rusher and or as a edge defender, period? I don't think it does. To me, he's just not that kind of a guy. Chase Winovich would have been so perfect for us because we could have stood him up and played him on the outside as well, and he could have been that Rob Ninkovich for us. He looks the part. He's strong. He's a great pass rusher. He's good against the run. He's great with his hands. He just throws people around. I'm talking about Chase Winovich right now. He just doesn't look the part. He didn't play the part. I felt like he's not physical enough for me to be that. So this pick is he's kind of in no man's land. He could turn out to be crap in TJ Watt for all He could, but he just doesn't look it to me. So this pick is for me. It's because I just don't know what he does. That is, I mean, and I know we don't have anybody to play that position, but I just don't know what he does to affect. I mean, obviously he's a fifth round pick, so I don't expect him to be some blue chip player, but I just don't know what he can do right away. So this is the kind of a guy that is probably going to be a special teams guy. Maybe he comes in just because we don't have anybody. But it's going to be interesting. He's athletic. He's an athletic dude. He, a lot of, high motor kind of a guy. But he doesn't really do anything like that I would say fits what he's not. He's just not physical enough. He reminds me a lot of Cassius Marsh, and he's even a little bit more slender than him. So just it's like a situational role player guy. Maybe we bring him in our pass rush packages, our speed packages, for him to do something like that as a blitzer or something like that. I don't think he's a 3-down player, especially not right away. I don't see him coming in on first and second down. I feel like, I don't see that at all. So just to give you a kind of an idea of what we could use him in his first season, especially on defense, is that kind of maybe a third down specialist. I think he has a better chance of doing something like that than definitely being on first or second down for sure. So that's just what I think. Now other people could think completely different than me, but we'll see. I'm interested to know what you guys think about that pick. So let's talk about our sixth round pick, Isaiah Prince. I mean, he did play against good players week in and week out, and he did good enough to get drafted. Which is, I think, is something that we should bring up. He did block high-level talent. I mean, he played Nick Bosa, obviously in practice. Hit the division that he's in. He had to go against good pass rushers on a consistent basis. I mean, this, the game that he had against Michigan, I think is a good thing to look at. Like, he did very well against a very good defensive front in Michigan, and he had to deal with a lot. I mean, Harbaugh is known for getting after the quarterback and sending heat and stuff like that, and he handled it, man. He handled it. He kept Dwayne Haskins clean. I feel like that's probably the best game he had. And I think that's something to be very optimistic about. We'll see how ready he is to be an NFL right tackle, especially as a rookie. That is he's not when you watch him, he's not someone that I'm like, dang, man, he's really like controlling the line of scrimmage. He's not moving people in the running game and stuff like that. But he does have like I just said, like the game that he had against Michigan, and they played Washington, and he's played good defenses and good defensive linemen, and he has done a good job. I think that's the best thing I can say about him. So I think this is a solid pick. A tackle who's played at a big time program, who's played against other big time players, and has done a good thing. I think is a good starting place to describe this player, and I feel like it was a very solid pick there. But will he play right away? I doubt it. We'll see, though. Maybe he is better than a 6th round pick usually is. So in the 7th round, we drafted Chandler Cox, fullback, Auburn. I feel like this is a great pick for us. I mean, I know, and this is a 7th round pick. Very physical running style at Auburn. Very physical style. Constantly running the ball. He's blocked for some really good running backs in his years down there in Auburn, and he's done a very, very good job. Some of his highlights are really funny. Speaking of fullbacks, we could play crap on Christian Wilkins. A good comparison. Kyle Williams, I've heard, been thrown around to compare Christian Wilkins to. I feel like he's a better athlete than Kyle was. I think he can move a lot faster. I think Kyle was more of a power guy at times. I know he was a good athlete, but I feel like Christian kind of plays the game differently than... He's more slippery than Kyle was, is my point. But the only reason I brought that up is because they both, played some fullback in their career. And we're talking about a fullback right now who's a very physical SEC type of a guy. Very physical. If you watch some of his splash plays, he's throwing people on the ground. And I mean, that's what we need a fullback to do. He reminds me a little, he kind of has the body type of Kyle Juszczyk, and he's caught some passes in his career, and when he does, he can get upfield a little bit. So he's a little bit versatile. He's not Pat Devlin, what they had in New England, who is literally, he looks like an offensive lineman, basically. He looks like an extra offensive lineman. He looks like a Kyle Juszczyk type of a guy who can do some other things as well as block for our running backs. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how we use him in the passing game. But I thought it was a good pick. I like him. I think he's a good fullback. And the 7th round and last pick of the day was Myles Gaskin out of University of Washington. This is an interesting pick. A lot of people expected him to go earlier than he did, but he is going to a loaded backfield. But the thing I would say against that is, obviously Chad comes from that New England offense, and the years that he was there, they used 3 running backs on a consistent basis. Just think about last year as an example. They used Rex Burkhead a lot. They used James White a lot. Who was the Sony Michel? They drafted Sony Michel out of Georgia. They used all 3 of them a lot in different games. They all made big plays for that New England team. You think about the Deion Lewis days with James White. They've always used Danny Woodhead, all of them. With Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis at a time was down there. So they've always had multiple guys in the backfield, at least 3. So I feel like Myles Gaskin does have a chance to get on the field and make plays. And I don't understand. Now, someone has going to have to tell me why he fell as far as he did. He's definitely better than a 7th round pick. I think we can all agree to that. He's a versatile guy. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's an NFL. He's a prototypical guy who he's got a little bit of Ryan Matthews in him. If you guys remember Ryan Matthews, I feel like he's got a little bit of that in him. But I definitely think he's better than 7th round pick. But I do think he can get onto the field because he is a versatile guy. And again, like I just brought up with the whole New England thing, they like to use multiple guys. It's the same kind of offense we're about to run. I would not be surprised if you saw Kalen Gaskin and Kenyon all contribute in some way with him in that rotation. So I like that pick a lot. I think we got a lot of value there. I don't know why he fell. Maybe I gotta Google this. I should have probably Googled this before I did the podcast. But maybe it's in the fan Q&A. Somebody's gonna have to tell me why he fell as far as he did. But he reminds me a little bit of Ryan Matthews. He's got a little bit of that in him. I don't think he's gonna be as good as Ryan Matthews, but for some reason he just the way he plays. So yeah, right before we get into the fan Q&A, just my overall thoughts of the draft. I think it's unfortunate that we didn't have more picks in this draft because it was a meat and potatoes draft. It had there was a lot of good linemen, and a lot of good linemen fell. And think if we had the 12 picks, the 2 second rounders in this draft, what we would have been able to accomplish. Think if we got like Jawan Taylor, Cody Ford in the 2nd round, and we also got Michael Deiter. Like, we could have completely fixed the offensive line in this draft and gotten an extra edge rusher. And unfortunately, because of past regimes, we were not set up to do that in this draft. So I don't know if it's the fault of Chris Greer. I don't think it's the job that he did in this particular draft. I just think it was the set of circumstances that we found ourselves in. And unfortunately, we could have had a better draft than what we had, 1,000%. We could have had a better draft. Maybe I would have taken a lineman where we took either an edge rusher, a better edge rusher. I feel like we could have taken with the Wisconsin pick, Andrew, the outside linebacker. I feel like we probably could have done a little bit better there. I'm interested to see how we use him because I just don't see it, really. I don't feel like he fits what we're trying to do at that position. But we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I feel like the biggest negative to this draft, I don't think it had anything to do with any decisions we've made, is that we just didn't set ourselves up well enough in this draft because we could have completely changed how people view both of the lines of scrimmage, especially in Miami and hardcore Dolphins fans, and we didn't do that because we didn't have the capital to do so. And I feel like that was probably the biggest negative to this draft. When you think about, in the 1st round, in my opinion, obviously is the most important. I feel like we nailed that pick. I think Christian Wilkins is going to be a great player. And as I say that, and again, like the whole, we did address the lines. I mean, we tried to do with like the best with what we had. It's not that we didn't address it. We just didn't have enough to do it at a higher level. And I felt like that was just the biggest negative to this draft. I feel like, other than the Wisconsin pick, The outside linebacker, the Andrew. I don't know. It's not Van Winkle. It's got a G in there. I heard someone pronounce it like that, and I was like, is that how you say it? But I don't think that's how you say it. I feel like I don't feel like he is going to be the answer to our edge problems as of right now, but he does give us that versatility. He did play that position in college, and I think by the very definition, unless we get some veteran stopgap guy, he probably will see more minutes than he probably should because of the need there. So I feel like this draft, we nailed the first round. I feel like we nailed the second round. The third round we nailed. I feel like we did a good job. I feel like I like this draft a lot. I'm not gonna grade it. I'm not being overly positive. I feel like it just. I mean, I don't know who to really blame it on that we didn't have more draft picks, but thank God we're definitely going to change that in the future because we have 12 in 2020, and that will most certainly change, and we probably will be getting more. So it just sucks that we couldn't have done that this year because there's so many good linemen that I like that we could have taken. So it sucks, but that's the only fault I really have of what the organization has done. I felt like with the position that they were put in, this is a new regime, remember? They kind of inherited this mess. So they did a very good job, in my opinion, with what they had. They got a quarterback of the future. We'll see if he is that, especially if the offensive line is picked. But we got a top 10 quarterback, first-round pick last year, who I still think is that. We got him for a second-round pick, and we're going to be paying him nothing to do so, and if he works out, we can really build this team. I don't know if that will happen, just because I don't think that's kind of where this organization is. I think we're built through the draft now. I think Chris Greer has said that multiple times. I don't understand how. I don't think that really, unless we extend some guys, obviously. But I liked it. I really liked the first round pick, and I think that was the most important. I liked the draft overall. We went out and got our quarterback for nothing, in my opinion. I really like Josh Rosen. We just have to fix the offensive line. And is it fixed? Nah, it's not really fixed. You know, it's not really fixed. Because we have to put Jesse at right tackle. If we don't, then it's just going to be an absolute mess. And we couldn't. I don't want to put. I would rather Ryan Fitzpatrick deal with that than put Josh in there for him to just get salted. And I don't think that's going to happen. I do think the Dolphins will, and I think he does. He's definitely going to have to earn the job. But I definitely think you're going to see Josh Rosen week 1, regardless of what happens. It's just the offensive line that we have to figure out. He has very talented people to throw to. It's just the offensive line that I'm worried about, and hopefully it gets dealt with. I think the only way this offensive line has a chance to be even okay is to put Jesse Davis at right tackle. Hopefully we do that, and we'll see what happens. But I do think the skill positions are in place to play at a high level. All right, let's get into the fan Q&A. Hopefully we have enough time to answer questions. If we don't, I will save these questions for next week because there's a lot of good ones, and especially they're related to the draft. So I feel like, obviously, those are going to stay relevant, even if, we wait until next week to answer some of them. All right. Let's get into the fan Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. We'll try to get through these. But knowing me, and now I talk about one thing for too long, we'll see. This first question comes from Will. He says, how do you feel about us picking Wilkins, Christian Wilkins? I think he has a high football IQ and graduated only 2 years, not to mention the Gerald McCoy comp. I don't think he's anything like Gerald McCoy. I think he's better against the run than Gerald was, for sure. I think he's more consistent than Gerald was, and I think he will be more consistent than Gerald will ever be. I don't think you can do the things you can with Christian Wilkins. Like, I can't stand Gerald McCoy up and put him at outside linebacker. Maybe I could play Gerald McCoy on the edge as a defensive end with his hand in the dirt, but he is nowhere near as versatile as Christian Wilkins. It's hard to find a professional comparison to him. Kyle Williams is similar in the fact that he's such a big dude and he can move. Like, he can move better than you. Like, he's a very, very good athlete. But I don't think he's anything like Gerald McCoy, just because of that. But I love the Christian Wilkins pick. I love it. For all the reasons I've mentioned before. This next question comes from Will as well. He says, surprised Montez Sweat dropped so far. Washington surprisingly had a good first round. No, I'm not surprised with all the stuff that we were hearing about the off-the-field issues and the heart condition and stuff like that. Here's what I'll say about Montez Sweat. I feel like he's a little overhyped. The whole Jeffrey Simmons thing, hopefully I don't forget his name, and that is his name. I think his name is Jeffrey Simmons. I kind of slept on him, and I watched him really a lot recently, and I was like, yeah, Jeffrey Simmons is really good, especially if he's healthy. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a way better. I don't know why I'm comparing these two right now and why it matters, but I just feel like Montez Sweat is more combine than substance. He still had pretty good production in the SEC. He had 8 sacks last year, but I don't think he's like a Josh Allen. But I think he has potential to be very good. So I'm not surprised though that he fell. This next question comes from Will. He says, do you think Greer did the right thing by avoiding the temptation of Haskins? Now as fans got to prepare for Herbert versus Tua rumors, who's your money on? First of all, if the offensive line is right, I feel like Josh Rosen is the future of this franchise. I really do believe that. He has weapons to throw to. The protection has to be there for him to be successful. And I feel like I think he's a better Dwayne Haskins. He's a better pocket passer than Dwayne Haskins is. He had more experience in college. He did it for longer in college. He has a better arm than I, and I'm not even joking around. He has better fundamentals. He reads defenses better and I haven't seen Dwayne in the NFL yet, but I feel like he's a better version of Dwayne Haskins. I think most people would agree with that. Maybe not. I don't know. But I think if things work out on the offensive line, but first of all, Justin Herbert I've never liked. If he was in this draft, I would have had him a lot lower than a lot of people. I've never liked Justin Herbert. I don't understand why he has so much hype. But Tua, yeah, I mean, Tua's great. Tua is going to be a great player. But if Josh Rosen doesn't work out, obviously Tua is going to be a Dolphin. I don't think any of us think any differently than that. If we pick Justin Herbert, I might have to just give up on everything. This next question comes from JFG. He says, should we sign outside linebacker Nick Perry from Green Bay since we did not fill our need for edge rusher? Absolutely. I forgot that Nick Perry has not been signed yet. I'm going to actually Google that right now. Nick Perry would be a perfect solution to that problem, because it is still a problem. I'm gonna look it up right now. Let me Google Nick Perry. I didn't know that nobody signed. I thought somebody signed him. I know he's had the injury issues. That's interesting. I see that Seattle is sitting right here. That Seattle has significant interest in him. Yeah, the Dolphins 1,000%. But I don't know what they'll do though. I don't know if they'll go after him. Because of the philosophy that they've, but he would fix that problem. But I don't know if they're necessarily in like we gotta win right now mode. But that's a perfect solution. Nick Perry would be perfect. He just has to stay healthy, but he would be he would be absolutely perfect for the scheme. And he has the Patrick Graham connection. Patrick Graham just coached him last year. This next question comes from Will. He says Greedy Williams is still available. I think this is at the time that he hadn't been drafted yet, so we'll skip this question. This question comes from JFG. He says, instead of the fullback, do you think we should have drafted defensive end Jordan Brailford out of Oklahoma State? Instead of the fullback? That's a tough question. I feel like if I trust Chris Greer enough to make that decision. We do need outside help, and to be honest with you, I probably would have, just because of the need there, and we need someone to be there, and I probably would have. But I like the pick regard. I think he's a good player that we got. I think he is a versatile fullback, and I like him. And it has anything to do with it's the fact that the position that he plays. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I probably would have went defensive in there. But still like the player that we got. This next question comes from Will. He says, this is another Will. This is a completely different Will. There's a lot of Wills going on right now. He says, what is your expectation of Charles Harris next year? And do you think he will achieve it? My expectation of Charles Harris is that I just don't see where he fits into this scheme. He has to significantly improve in the run game in terms of his run defense and be more physical, and he has to get a lot stronger to be that guy that we need him to be. Because as of right now, and the stuff that we have seen previously of him, he cannot do that. So my expectations are super low. I really don't have any expectations for him. I don't have any expectations for Charles. I think the thing that I can hope for the best is he just becomes a good third down pass rush specialist, to be honest with you, because as of right now, he is not a 3-down player, especially in this game. This next question comes from Bad Bandit. He says, I'm not the most excited about getting Rosen, but I don't think it will make our division... But I do think it will make our division fun to watch. Picture this, 3 first-round quarterbacks for 2018 and 3 first-round DTs of 2019, and all in the same division. Your thoughts? Yeah, I thought that last year when we picked Rosen. Because, him and Sam have always had that California rivalry. They've known each other since they were kids. They've always had that kind of... that rivalry, so that's going to be interesting now that he's a Dolphin and that he's a Jet. It's kind of the same thing again, repeating itself that they had in college. So that should be fun. And the whole defensive tackle thing is funny. I think we got the second best one, because I love Quentin Williams. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Christian Wilkins is a better prospect, but I think we got the second best. I think I like him better than Ed Oliver, because Christian is more consistent. Bad Bandit says, and he says this, he's people I think are underestimating how, athletic my guy is. This next question goes for Bad Bandit. He says, do you think we will draft a quarterback next year, or will we go all in on Rosen? Perhaps we give Rosen 2 years, and if he doesn't work out, Trevor Lawrence will be coming out, and we move on. No, I think this is, if Rosen doesn't prove anything this year, then we're drafting one in 2020. I don't think we're all in on Rosen when it comes to that. He has to prove himself this year. So that's where I think that is as of right now. This next question comes from JFG. He says, how do you like the Van... How do you say his last name? Andrew Van, Wisconsin outside linebacker. There was still Joe Jackson and DeAndre Walker still on the board. And Charles Omen... Who? I got some of these last names, dude. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, dude. I just don't understand what... They must see something in him that I don't. I just don't see where he's just not the answer, if that makes any sense. I don't feel great about it. I guess that's how I say it. I just don't feel great about that one, but maybe I'm wrong. Drag Unity 182 says, after the draft, he says, what do you think our biggest needs Dolphins still need to face? Also a huge fan. Been here since you were making Dolphins videos with Madden playing in the back. Yeah, I remember you, dude. I remember your little icon. I don't know who character that is on the front there. I appreciate that. He says, so what is the biggest needs? I still feel like offensive line, and whether that, I don't really know what, you can name tackle or guard, really. I feel like that's still a huge need there. Edge rusher outside linebacker and edge defender is the biggest need. There is our defensive line right now is in shambles. Brian Flores is going to have to cook up some of those blitzes that he had. People forget in New England he didn't really have a star rusher either. And he did a lot of zero-man coverage, which is where you just go after the quarterback and you gamble a lot. He's going to have to do a lot of that right now because he's going to have to manufacture pressure because we're not getting it. The thing I'm most concerned about is edge defense in the running game. Because that is we need someone. It's a glaring need. It is a glaring need still. And thank you for sticking around this long, dude. I appreciate that, and I do remember you. Corporate Gamer says, what do you think about Daniel Jones being taken in? I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. He was my 4th rated quarterback when I was ranking him, and I watched a lot on all of them, and he was my 4th rated guy. And they passed over Dwayne Haskins and Andrew Luck to get him. So I think that's a huge mistake. This next question comes from Ron. He says, with Christian Wilkins as our first round, who or what position would you like to see at 48? So that was at the time I wanted it as one of the tackles, or Jawan Taylor, or Drew Lock. Those probably were my top 2 guys. Or Cody Ford, or Greg Little. I actually like all of those guys. G2003 says, what will the Dolphins do with Ryan Fitzpatrick now that we have Josh Rosen? Josh Rosen is not going to come in and start. He's not going to just get the job because he's Josh Rosen. He's going to have to beat out Ryan Fitzpatrick, which I think will make Josh Rosen better. And I cannot wait to see how that goes down in camp. That is going to be so fun to keep track of. This next question comes from Ron. He says, Skaggs, how do you feel about Jeffrey Simmons if he is the Dolphins pick and will likely miss all of the 2019 season? That's the reason I don't think you could have done that. And I think Christian Wilkins, you can make an argument that is a better player. Jeffrey Simmons, you can make an argument that is the best player in the draft, not just defensive lineman. He is a flashy player when you watch him play. He is a big, athletic man who can straight up wreck an offensive game plan. And I think he's worth taking in the first round for sure. But I feel like what we did was the right move. Because I could see an argument for both players being better than each other. And plus, Christian is going to be able to play and develop quicker. Because he's going to be able to play, as of right now, every game. Alpha, this question comes from Alpha. He says, who do you think will start more games this year, Rosen or Fitzpatrick? And who do you prefer? I think, barring an injury, whoever wins the job early on will start all 17 games. I don't think it's going to go to the regular season where they're one starting more than the other. Whoever wins it in training camp is going to have the job for the rest of the year. So, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to answer the rest of the questions next week, but we have ran out of time. I loved this draft for the context. Now, put into context why I like this draft. Maybe loved is a strong word, but I like this draft a lot. I love Josh Rosen. I always have. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. And let's keep the conversation going, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next one. I can't wait to see Josh Rosen's press conference. It's all really, really exciting.